Good night, everyone. I'm Dr. Deborah Bartholomew, and this is my older son, Rowan. Rowan, as you may
Hello.
know, Rowan, as you may know, is on the autistic spectrum. And as time has gone by, we have felt the need to share a little bit about what it is to be autistic and the things that have had to go into um, Rowan being who he is and how amazing he is and to help people to understand that being autistic is being different and unique, but also being amazing at the same time. Yeah. So I think Rowan's a little tired. So this particular video was prompted by something that Rowan said to me today, and I'd actually offered to take him for a drive this afternoon, but we'd already done a couple of things for the day, and when I said what I said to him was, I actually wasn't going to take him with me. I was taking his younger brother Adrian with me for the drive around. And my mom said, "Aren't you taking Adrian?" And sorry, "Aren't you taking Rowan?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't think Ro would want to go." And she said, "You sure?" And then when I did ask him, "What did you say, Rowan?"
Well, I said I've had too much different for one day.
Exactly. He'd had too much different for one day. And you might be like, what does that mean? But it's difficult for persons on the autistic spectrum to have a lot of change, a lot of different. And so we wanted to title this particular video, "The More Things Change, the more they stay the same." So transitions are always difficult for persons on the spectrum. Change is always difficult because it brings about a lot of anxiety, right, Ro?
Hmm. Especially when
And
the
that
change is very sudden.
that's right, and that anxiety can be manifest in different ways. So you might think that that person is having a meltdown or exhibiting self-stimulatory behavior, so what we would call stims, um, and that can be because they're trying to actually just right themselves. They're actually trying to settle themselves because of the change. So what are some of the changes, Rowan, that you have been through, that you can remember, that created the most amount of angst for you, and what did it feel like?
Um, well, um, well, one thing def I definitely hated dealing with was moving. I had to move house quite a bit in the past, and I'd always feel sad and probably even have a meltdown whenever I had to.
Yeah, yeah. And even though we had some preparation, there were a couple of times that we didn't have any preparation, right? When we were in Libya, that was the most traumatic, I think, because that definitely, that sudden, even though we didn't want to alarm you both, we had to tell you some bit, because otherwise it was going to be really, really difficult for you, Rowan. And certainly we left everything behind. We left all our clothes, all our all your toys, and you didn't get to see that for months, and that created a lot of issues for you. How did it feel inside? Let's take another big change that's been recent. Have there been any changes recently?
Well, if we're going to address the elephant in the room, then definitely this pandemic and the lockdown that's come with it.
And virtual learning. That's a humongous change. How did it make you feel?
Not actually. Not. It turns out not actually. It turns out a lot is different when you don't actually have to go somewhere.
Yeah. How did it make you feel emotionally?
Well, it was fun for the first few weeks, and then the emptiness set in. And then I was extremely apprehensive about returning to school as I usually am. And there was just a lot of things going on that I didn't understand, and it was really stressful for me.
Part of the issue with change is the unknown, right? If you were to be told or prepared, or you were to be prepared, it wouldn't be so stressful for you, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
So the anxiety with change comes from the unknown. So has it used to be pretty tough in the past, right? It used to be worse. Even changed during the school day. Yes?
Yes.
So during the school day, what kinds of things would have had to be done to help you prepare for a change? So like would you need to be prepared if a new subject was going to come on, like if you were going to change from one subject to the next? When you were younger, you had to be prepared for that. Yes?
I don't really remember much about new subjects being introduced. Although when you can get into them properly, new subjects are actually quite fun. I remember doing shop for the first time in England.
So it's not
we were learning sewing.
Right. So it's not that it's a new subject per se. It's again the change. And lack of preparation. But once you get into it and you understand what it's about, and it's no longer unknown for you to some extent, then the anxiety dissipates somewhat.
Yes. One example of, and it wasn't even a new subject, but one example of jumping into something new that I absolutely hated was my first sixth form Spanish class. We had to listen to a documentary, and that ended up being a rather stressful beginning.
Yeah, it was. You really didn't know what to expect with sixth form.
Yeah. And that literally ruined my day.
It ruined a little bit more than your day. You actually felt like you would not be able to complete sixth form, and you felt like as if you had put yourself into deep, yes, bitten off more than you could have chewed. That's right. What changed?
You mean besides the virtual learning?
Well, I mean, you no longer feel that way, even though now you're into exams, and that in itself is somewhat new because it's CAPE exams, but you still don't seem as you seem to be a little bit more settled. So what's changed?
Well, I've definitely learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I can actually handle certain questions now.
But you're also more in tuned with your timetable, isn't it? So when you were younger,
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, and this is one of the things that has always been at the forefront, at the mainstay of managing your anxiety during managing your anxiety, if in cases of change or transition or anything, is to introduce visuals, because visuals tend to be very calming. Also, if you are overwhelmed, you won't pay attention. Your auditory perception falls. So you're less able to understand what somebody is saying to you. You're less able to perceive what someone is saying to you, less able to follow instructions if it's presented to you verbally, right? And so I found that Auntie Teresa actually also taught me this from the beginning, that I could present stuff to you visually, and that has always helped. So you seeing your timetable, yes, visually, so that you know what's next, right? So that you can see what's next, and so that you can prepare for what's coming next, but also that you are counted down, right? In the beginning, you used to have to be prepared for the transition, so that you don't say, okay, time's up, move on to the next thing, but that you are prepared. And that's how it is for you for exams, right? You are given your time winding down, so you don't 5 minutes and then you realize that your time is going to be up, because that would create a lot of anxiety, right?
Yeah. Another thing that you were speaking about not being able to process information in a certain form. Another thing that I don't process well are lists. And I mean like lists presented in a way that the in a way similar to how the official CXC and I mean CSAC and CAPE timetables will be presented. I can't deal with that at all. That it's really cumbersome to try and read, especially when the lettering is small.
And that does
Easy
not
to
help you
get lost in.
Yes.
The text.
And that doesn't help you with your preparation for the transition either. So you rather see it on an actual timetable, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. Yes. So what we wanted to talk about was that we wanted to point out how difficult change is, or difference is, for an autistic, and the things that really help with that is introducing visuals. Even at Rowan's age, don't ever think that visuals are beneath. It's not that visuals are too babyish, or visuals are beneath them, or he's outgrown visuals. Visuals are the way he perceives
visuals are
things.
vital.
The best way. That's right. Visuals are just the way that he perceives things. So it doesn't, it's not too babyish. It's not
Visuals are just
that he's, go ahead.
sometimes what is what contrib one thing that contributes to a bit of a how do you say this? One thing that can really fence people off from certain subjects is the way the subjects are taught. For me, for instance, sociology is not taught visually. I mean, there might be a few pictures here and there in a textbook, but it's mostly just squalls and storms of words.
And a lot of theories. So we've had to make things quite visual, haven't we?
Yes.
It's quite fascinating what happens when you present an autistic with a bunch of words, or you try to explain something verbally, and then you present the same thing in picture form or with a lot of visuals. It's amazing to see the transformation. One, you get, first of all, you can almost see the light bulb go off in their head as they totally understand. It's almost like if they can read or understand hieroglyphics or Greek, and you are speaking in English and they can't understand, they can only understand Greek. This is their language. This is the language that their brain understands. And so they can read visuals even faster sometimes than words. And so when you do that, but the calm that you see, especially when they are going through a period or moment of anxiety, or they're having a meltdown, or the calm that you get when the visuals are presented, it's absolutely mind-boggling. So if you are going to introduce any change, which is like what I did with Rowan so social stories are some things, sometimes some of the as one of the supports or strategies that can help. So you present a story. So for instance, today is Saturday. And so you start off something like this, today is Saturday, and you immediately draw them in. There is no school, and you can even draw this school building, and maybe draw a slide, a swing, so the children understand that it's a playground. Okay, and then you can cross this out. You can cross this out so that they understand that there's no school. And then you say, we are going to the market. And you can draw some stalls with some apples and some bananas, watermelon, pumpkin, so draw, we are going to the market, and you could even draw the family, the family going to the market. This is one child.
Maybe have a tent or something.
Yeah,
Or
and have a
the,
yes, and have the tent. And they're going to the market, right? And so you show what's happening because this day is different to the normal day. It's different to the normal day. But what you're also doing is you're also introducing the visuals that will help to calm. So what I now that Ron has gotten older, I actually prepared him. I prepared him since yesterday. I told him that, how do you feel about going to the market actually it wasn't yesterday, it was on Thursday. I said, how do you feel about going to the market on Saturday morning? There will be, and I said to him, there will be tents, and there will be fruit and vegetables, and we can walk around a little bit. Okay. So that's a bit of preparation for what's going to happen. After that, we went to the drugstore. But you see, because all those things are different for him, even though I prepared him for it, it's still a lot. So different can still bring about, and because they have to remember, they are being bombarded, they're being overwhelmed. Yes, Rowan?
mm-hmm.
Right. So for them, go ahead, you go ahead.
I mean, and so there's yeah. All right. So it's enough to deal with virtual school and adapting to not having the kind of solace you'd have at each school. And then there's exams on top of that. And the fact that you don't want to be, living off disability benefits for the rest of your life.
But it was when you said, because I've seen you, Ron, I've seen where when you had to go off for your sleepover for confirmation, and we got to the car park, and even though I had prepared you, when we got to the car park and you realized you were going to be going off with this group of young people, even though these were young people that you had seen, you had been spent a couple of hours with every Saturday for how much of a month? No, sorry, how much? It was more than a year. Still, this was a vast and new experience, and it wasn't quite understood. I think a couple of people thought that I was babying you, but they didn't quite understand what was going to happen, because this was not only was this something new, but you also had a bad experience at another sleepover, didn't you? When you didn't sleep well because you were away from home, didn't know what to expect. It was all new, and then later that night you ended up having seizures, right? So
Oh,
all of
yes.
that was bombarding you. And I remember looking at you across the courtyard, and your eyes looked into mine, and my eyes looked into yours. You looked into my soul, and I looked into your soul. And I can't remember how many steps I made across that courtyard, but all I know is that I was at your side in tutus, and you were in tears, you were in a mess, because it was just too new. It was just too much change. No home, and just too much, all this taking place. So it's important to prepare properly for change. Yeah. And sometimes when you do have a lot of change, you need to unwind, right? Like
Yeah.
you needed to.
Sometimes you ask, like, for some people think even things like social interactions and diving into brand new things. Sometimes even that can be literally physically exhausting.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand that and don't appreciate that, how exhausting it can be. So it's important to do the preparation before. Even do little snippets, introduce it slowly. When you are transitioning from one thing to the next, count down. We have 20 more minutes and then we will do something else. We have 5 more minutes and then we will do something else. If you are going to introduce something new, introduce it in small amounts. Maybe create a social story about it. Maybe even have a timetable that shows that you are going to have that change. But having it's important to teach that change is important. You can't do the same thing every day all the time. So change is important. But how you introduce change is equally important for an autistic. When Rowan was just diagnosed, he even had an afternoon scheduled timetable. So I know that his dad thought it was overkill, but you see kids on the spectrum thrive on routine. Persons on the spectrum thrive on routine, as do many of us who are not on the spectrum, although Rowan's teacher always says we are all on the spectrum in some way, and I do believe her. So we thrive on routine, and if that routine gets turned upside down, you feel out of sorts. Okay? When you're at school and you're working towards a routine, and then you get home and there's no routine, you sometimes wonder, why is that behavior only for you, the parent? But it's because there's no routine in place. Right, Rowan?
Actually, this kind of reminds me of going into a bit of a sociology thing here, but this kind of reminds me of Emile Durkheim's study on suicide.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, elaborate.
He basically did a study on certain British towns, I think, and he realized that areas that didn't really have norms as enforced would be where suicide rates would be higher.
Oh, interesting. That's actually quite interesting. As you all can tell, Rowan has been teaching me sociology, and it's actually been quite fascinating. So basically this is we've had to enforce routine. And in the beginning, what I did was every single part, including bedtime. And it's important to have a bedtime routine, because otherwise they struggle to fall asleep. But autistics struggle with insomnia. So having a bedtime routine always helps. And actually, when things are difficult, go ahead.
So I don't know much of psychology, but it causes this thing like a Pavlov, right? A Pavlov, is it? wait, you know about the Pavlov, right?
Yes, I do.
Well, you kind of repeat things, and you kind of start associating that thing with other. Yeah, I didn't explain that well, but
No, you explained it
just
very well. You explained it very well. That's why I'm smiling, because you explained it perfectly. So you make the association. That's correct. So when your body, and that's the best way to explain to parents, because when your body is your mind makes the association between a cup of hot chocolate and bedtime. So from the time the cup of hot chocolate, you smell a cup of hot chocolate, or you get your bath, or you smell the lavender oil, um, you realize it's time to wind down. And that's how you make the association. Very good, Rowan. I could not have explained that any better. So that's basically what we do with regard to routines, and as time went on, I was able to introduce on as part of a timetable where Rowan could make a choice. So even though he had a routine, he also had an opportunity to make a choice. Now you give him the two choices, the two options, because also they get overwhelmed by when there's too much choice. And then as time go on, you introduce three choices. And now I don't even have to draw up a timetable per se for Rowan. He knows his timetable. He knows when he has his lessons classes. So, these things become ingrained, But anytime he's overwhelmed, having a social story in any form, because of course, having it like this, he has definitely outgrown this. But I can actually write him a poem as a social story. For instance, Fingers for Lunch was written it was a social story written as a poem. So these things help with preparation for different situations. So social stories, visuals, counting down so that they can understand that there is a change, and the preparation before, and also just allowing them the time to wind down after helps. So, Ro, how do you feel about different circumstances? I need to know how it makes you feel inside when there's something that's different happening.
well, hmm. Chi- um, well, okay, I think I might be going a little off topic here, but
Mm-hmm.
so much of the magnitude of the change, I realized it depends on two factors. The the gravity or the seriousness of the change,
Mm-hmm.
and the and how and hmm, the altitude. I um if the and okay, and where the change leads. Yeah, that's better. Like
Explain.
the uh, the new Google Meet interface.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small thing, but I could have been mildly I could have been mildly affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
But but the new Meet look actually ended up working for the better. So I ended up welcoming that change. On the
Right.
other hand, the retreat, quote unquote, as mentioned earlier, well, you see, I was basically staying for a weekend with a bunch of people I barely knew, in somewhere that was in let's just say disagreeable living conditions. I mean, okay.
But you
To
didn't
be
even know
honest,
where you were
I'm
going.
kind okay. I'm
Yeah.
kind of I'm kind of when it comes to the place I'm staying, I'm kind of snotty about that.
That's okay.
I'm kind of the I'm very what's the word?
Particular.
Particular, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fine,
I
Rowan.
I
But
don't. I'm not going to. I'm not going to like sleeping in a hard mattress and on a bunk bed made out of wood that feels like it's it feels like it's already been through 50,000 termites.
but you see,
I know it's supposed to be. Sorry.
No, it's
I know
okay.
it's supposed. I know it's supposed to be about a confirmation thing, so that's really not the point. But that's not really something I can, change about myself.
Yeah. And that is two things, Rowan. That is partly your autism. That is partly you. I mean, look, Rowan, I may not like it either. And there are a lot of people who won't like it either. Okay? But the one thing is that they may be okay if they have good company or they have good food or they have wine or whatever. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
But for someone who's autistic, you need to feel something that is going to be similar or the same as what you're accustomed, your regular circumstance, your regular situation. You need something that's familiar to just ground you. And if you're in a totally different situation and you don't have anything to ground you, then everything's going to throw you off. And you're going to feel, so there's nothing. And that's why for that weekend, Adrian and I drove all the way up. We drove up with all our clothes for the night, and we were prepared to sleep in the van outside, just in case anything happened. You know,
the one part where I felt they kind of went overboard was when they kind of took our phones away. I mean, I know
yes, because then that has
I'm just
removed
going to
your.
sound like I know I'm gonna sound like a typical teenager here, but it really, it felt like I was going to prison.
Yeah, and then it removed your one lifeline to me and to Adrian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can hear to some extent the distress in Ron's voice, brought on by an unfamiliar situation, an unfamiliar circumstance, an unfamiliar event. This is it doesn't change really. Sometimes it's creates a little bit of angst. Sometimes it creates a lot. You know, I've been through so many different situations, and I've prepared Rowan for, if not all, almost all. And I have to say that all the work that we put in the beginning has really paid off now, in that most times I don't have to you know, pull out visuals or whatever. But what I do like and what I do appreciate is having a conversation with him where we both understand what's going to happen, where we both are prepared. It's not, I don't see it as me having to do anything extra. I actually enjoy, it's part of our life, you know, and it's an important part of our life. And I really do enjoy just doing those things with him. And his brother enjoys it as well. The two of them, when they're doing something like that, when they're doing something new, I'll never forget Adrian when Rowan was, they had to model for a fashion show down south, and Adrian walked Rowan through every step, and it was absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. So, um,
So that just kind of goes to show how going the extra mile can help the autistic and the neurodiverse in general, and and even living and even um being being negligent in some places could could potentially ruin something that the autistic person in question is supposed to enjoy.
yeah, well said, Ro. Well said. And that brings us to the end of our video, our session. The more things change, the more they
The
stay the
more they
same.
say the same.
And I think it's only fitting that we sing this song, that because I sing this song with Rowan before every major thing, because again, he understands the little steps have helped him on to bigger things, but also because it's the same thing that we do all the time, it helps to comfort him a little bit in the beginning,
a
a
little
little
more
more
later
later
on.
on. Watching how
The good
the
things
good
go,
things go.
how
That's
the
how
world
the
goes
world
on.
goes
Take
on.
a look
Take a
at the
look at the
sunshine
sunshine
rolling into the
into the day.
day. And you
And
see
you see
all the
all
good
the good
things
things
going
going
better
better
every
every day.
day. Take a look
Take
at
a
the
look at the
baby
baby
sleeping in his
sleeping in his
mother's
mother's
arms.
arms.
Although
Although he's
very
very
small,
small, he's
he's
growing up
safe
safe
and
and
sound.
sound.
Take a
Take a
look
look
at
at
the
the
river
river
falling into
pouring
the
into the
bay,
bay,
and you
and
see
you see
all the
all
good
the
things
good things
going
going
better
better
every
every
day.
day. Night, sweetie.
Um,
Love you.
love you too.